Good evening to everyone who is in council chambers and who is joining us online. We're going to get underway with the meeting this evening. My name is Katie Amy. I provide admin support to Economic Growth and Community Development Services. And this is the presentation for the Potter Creighton South and Main Street Reconstruction Project. So just before I hand it over to our project supervisor, Joe, we are going to do a presentation where Joe will talk a bit about the project itself. And then after that, we will open it up to questions from those who are online, as well as those in the room. So if you'll bear with me for just a moment, I'm just going to start our presentation here. Sorry. Let's share my screen. And Joe, please go ahead.
All right. Good evening, everybody. As Katie said, welcome to the presentation. My name's Joe Gratton, and I'm the project supervisor for Loyalist Township, and I'll be taking care of the project on behalf of the township, the developer, and the county. Next slide, please, Katie. So for this presentation, we're going to go through a couple of things. So a little bit of background on the project. We'll talk about some key dates, what the overall project scope is, some of the construction details, what to expect during construction, some common typical project concerns people have, and then there's an opportunity for questions at the end. You can ask questions anytime during the presentation. I know sometimes it's hard to think of them till the end. I believe the chat feature works, so Katie will let me know if there's a question, and we'll try and get it answered. Oh, sorry, raise hand feature. And if not, questions at the end, or if you think of something after, all our contact information will be there, and you can send us an email or give us a call and we'll answer it then. Next slide, please. So a little bit of background. So the road and infrastructure requires some upgrading to service the new development. Obviously, with the new development happening in Odessa, there's more traffic. So there's some upgrades required to the road. As well, Main Street, Odessa, the road surface has reached the end of its service life and it's scheduled for replacement. And on the township side, our underground infrastructure and some of the road sections also require replacement. So this is an opportunity to do all of these at the same time and hopefully see some cost savings. As well, there's a partnership with the Odessa Public School students in Loyalist Township under the Imagining My Sustainable Community, and what students there thought their community should look like. So we've incorporated some of their ideas into the design. And we've also taken this opportunity to improve pedestrian access within the township. So because of all of the different groups involved, the township's managing it as a joint project. Next slide, please. So some key dates for the project. So it's currently out for tender. It should close in the next few weeks, and then it'll be awarded probably in the May timeframe. We estimate the contractor will start work late spring, early summer of 2024. And there's 2 phases to the project. We've asked the contractor to have the Main Street work completed this year, and then the balance of the work, it's at their discretion, but we anticipate some work will be completed in 2024, the Main Street work, and the balance of the work will be completed by the end of 2025. Next slide, please. So what's included in the project? So there's upgrades in Odessa to Potter Drive, Creighton Drive, South Street, and Main Street in Odessa. It will be a multi-year construction project, as I said, completed in December 2025. And the budget for the project is approximately $4.5 million. Included in the work is replacement or repair of water mains, sanitary sewer, and right-of-way drainage improvements. It includes upgrading of Potter Drive to a collector road, including the addition of new sidewalks from Main Street, Odessa to the new development area on both sides of Potter Drive. The installation of a multi-use pathway along the south side of Main Street, Odessa, from Creighton Drive to West Street, or the Pop-In as most people would know it. And the installation of a signalized pedestrian crosswalk at Main Street, Odessa at West Street. Slide, please. So what we hope to achieve from this project is improved right-of-way drainage, improved traffic flow with the new development and the school, increased active transportation linkages. So it's part of our overall plan to try and link our active transportation to the various parts of the community, improved pedestrian safety, and upgraded water, sewer, and storm infrastructure to continue to provide reliable service. So there's an extensive list of drawings that can be found. The link is there, and it's also going to be posted on the Township project page. Drawings are very hard to review in the presentation, so we won't be doing that, but essentially all the drawings that are here for the in-person information session are available online, and you can go and take a look at them at a time that's convenient. Next slide, please. So there's several different cross sections that are planned within the project area. Sorry, notes all confused. There's a lot of different areas, so it's a bit of a challenge to design. There's a lot of competing interests for the small amount of space within the right of way. I'll just start by saying the cross section used really depends on a number of factors, including the width of the road right of way, what your localized drainage is, the availability of storm sewer, and anticipated traffic, as well as pedestrian use. Next slide, please. So when I talk about a cross section, what I'm talking about is if you were to look straight down the road and kind of slice it in half so you could see all the various components, basically as you see up on the screen. And it's a typical illustration of what the road should look like, and all the different measurements for all the different features. So this would be the typical cross section that we'll be putting onto Main Street. There are some variations depending on where you are. So it'll include a sidewalk on the north side between Potter and Durham, a multi-use path on the south side for the full length of the construction area. So that'd be from West Street to Creighton. West of Potter, we'll have ditches. We do aim for 3-to-1 slopes where possible. However, in some instances, it's not achievable. And then the overall width will vary throughout the project area depending on the turning lane. So there's 2 turning lanes planned at the Potter intersection. So obviously at that location, the road will be at its widest, and then they taper away as you get east and west of that location. Next slide, please. Sorry, just to make sure I'm on the right slide. So Potter Drive, the typical cross section, again, same idea as if you were to take a slice and look down the street. There's sidewalk on both sides. Again, the width will vary depending on the turning lanes. It'll be a bit wider closer to the intersection and then narrow up a little bit as you get into the subdivision. And then the width of the shoulder or boulevard also varies a little bit depending on the right of way that's available. Next slide, please. So Creighton Drive, again, sort of the typical cross section. So Creighton has sidewalk on one side. Again, the width will vary. It's a bit wider up at the Main Street intersection, and then as you get further into the subdivision, it does become a bit narrower. And then the shoulder will vary depending on the right of way available. And then finally for South Street, So there's no sidewalks planned for South Street. It is getting some new storm and curb. And the ditches, there won't be any ditches along South Street. So what to expect? Try to illustrate sort of what's going to happen. It will be disruptive. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about it. It's that whole omelet eggs thing. But we will make sure that you have access to your property and you are still able to get in and out as you need to. So the pictures here are from a project we did a few years ago, where there are going to be open excavations. They will all be fenced and it'll be made safe for people. And then there'll be a gravel lane through the construction area, but it may not be a full lane like you're used to. That's just what the pictures are supposed to illustrate. So this would be a typical what you'll see during the project, depending on where you are. So some common project concerns. Delays. So as I said, it's anticipated the contractor will keep one lane open at all times. For sure, Highway 2, County Road 2, Main Street will have, as a minimum, a single lane open at all times. For the other streets, there may be times during the project where there'll be only access to your property from one direction. So for example, if you live on South Street, depending on what work is happening, you may only be able to access your property from Potter Drive or from Creighton Drive, depending on where the work is happening. So township staff will make sure we communicate these closures to residents as much as possible, and the contractor will have flaggers to control traffic on site. And our staff monitoring the construction communicate with our emergency services, so they're aware of any changes and know which way to access properties in the event there's an emergency. Rock breaking. Unfortunately, rock excavation is a requirement to complete the work. We are relocating some of the pipes, so they will not be in the same trench they are now. And unfortunately, Loyalist Township is basically built on rock, so there isn't a whole lot of alternative to the rock breaking. Dust and poor road conditions. So as you saw in the previous pictures, the road conditions are not going to be your standard road conditions that you would typically see. And there's going to be potholes and bumps and whatnot. However, the contractor is expected to keep the road open and suitable for traffic at all times. So you will be able to drive your car down the road to get to your property, but it's not going to be the same asphalt smooth surface road you're used to. They will be required to use dust suppressant to help reduce the dust created during the project and keep the roadways as clean as possible. There will be open excavations. However, they will be fenced, and the contractor does have an obligation to keep the site safe, and township staff will be monitoring to make sure they're meeting their requirements. That being said, it will be an active construction site, so we're hoping to have everyone's cooperation to make sure they're not crossing fences and barriers and things like that. Access to your property. So the contractor is required to maintain access to all driveways. However, there are some circumstances where perhaps for one night you might be asked to just park on the side of the road. If this is to happen, the contractor will make sure they coordinate it with residents individually so they can make a plan. And if there's some sort of extraordinary circumstance or some type of need, then they'll obviously be able to accommodate. And then utility service interruptions. So there will be some temporary water shutdowns during the project. The residents will be on temporary water, which involves the placement of temporary pipes on the side of the road. Anybody who lives in Odessa right now, you can see those in the other project that we're doing over on Bridge, Potter, and Creighton. Or sorry, Bridge, South, and Battery. There will also be times when the water is shut down to allow for work to be completed. So as they're transferring residents over to the temporary water system, or they're doing some work on the main water system, there'll be temporary shutdowns. The intent is to keep these interruptions as short as possible, and residents will always have a minimum of 24 hours notice prior to any shutdown. And we'll keep keep them as short as possible and people informed. Another major project concern is what the reinstatement will look like at the end. So depending on where they're located in relation to some of the buried infrastructure, so any of the valves or curb stops and whatnot, it may be necessary to remove trees that will be damaged during the work. So the township will replace any tree that's removed. And if the tree roots are damaged, and in the opinion of the township, the tree will not survive, the township will remove the tree to make sure a safety hazard is not created. But as noted above, we will replace any tree that has to be removed. Grass areas are planned to be reinstated with a mix of hydroseed or sod, depending on their location, the season, and the erosion risk. And there are some advantages and disadvantages to each option. Hydroseed is cost effective. It's significantly cheaper than sod. It's about 1/10 of the cost. It's easier to care for as it's not a transplanted project, but it actually grows on site. It tends to blend into the existing grass better. It does take longer to grow. It's, with sod, you get your instant lawn and it looks beautiful right away. Hydroseed does have to grow, so it does take a while to fill in. And in the short term, there are erosion issues until it's had a chance to root. Sod is much better at preventing erosion because it acts as a mat to help retain the soil. And you do get that finished look right away. There is more care required with sod, and our policy for construction projects is the contractor is responsible for the first 30 days, and then responsibility reverts to the homeowner for watering and maintenance. Sod is significantly more difficult to, I don't know, fix is the right word, repair, address, if it dies, because you do end up with a thick mat of mulch, and you essentially have to remove the dead sod to replace it. And sod is very expensive compared to seed. So work completed late in the season may need to be sodded just to prevent erosion issues. But our goal for the township portion of the work is hydroseed, and the work on Main Street will likely be sod. Areas where we do hydroseed may require a second application depending on the weather or growing conditions, but it will come in. I may regret saying this, but if you look on, it was a bit controversial, but I think with hindsight, it provides a very good example of what the two different methods look like. If you are curious to see what it looks like and you happen to be in Amherstview, if you take a drive down Chesterfield, you'll see there's been both sod and hydroseeded areas, and in general, both areas have grown back in. And you can kind of form your own opinions, but I think in general, they both look the same. Landscape features, head walls and other landscape features within the township right of way that need to be removed for construction will not be reinstated. We can meet and discuss with individual homeowners if you have a particular situation that's unique to your property. And certainly you can move it ahead of construction. But if you do have something like that, definitely bring it to our attention and we can have a conversation about it. I already talked about the temporary water, but temporary water. So temporary water pipes will be used to provide water to residents during the construction. So this involves placement of plastic pipes across the front of your property, and you'll also have a temporary ramp across your driveway. We do ask that you use care when you're traveling over the pipes, as they are supplying water to your house and your neighbors' houses. So we want to make sure that we don't have any damage that impacts the water supply. And if you happen to notice an issue with the pipes, please let someone in the township know right away so we can have it addressed before it becomes a bigger issue. We will have township staff on site throughout construction all the time. And they're available to address any concerns and act as a go-between between residents and the contractor. At the start of construction, you will receive an information letter, which will have all of the contact information, both for the contractor as well as for township staff. And we definitely encourage you to reach out with any concerns. It's a lot easier to address them when they're small concerns before they have a chance to get into something big. And I asked for, if you want the fastest response is please use the contact information in the letter. The township does have a vast number of ways you can communicate with us through online messaging, Twitter, Facebook, all the other stuff, but the contact information in the letter will get you the fastest response. It will get to us through all the other ways, but it just has to go through a few more hands. So just throwing that out there. And then that's the goal for the end of it. So what you're seeing now is sort of the finished product. So the pictures that I showed, I don't know, a few slides ago with all the construction work, this is the same spot. So this is Chesterfield where I was talking, and you can see this picture is from Street View from 2023. So it's about 2 years after all that work was completed, and you can see things have generally gone back to how they are. And that's the goal for the finished product is, generally everything's replaced and looks as good as it was. That's generally it for the formal presentation. So if there's any questions or comments, you can use the raise hand icon. We'll try our best to answer.
Thank you, Joe. So if anyone in the virtual audience has any questions or comments that you'd like to bring forward at this time, please use the raise hand feature, or you can type your question into the chat and I will read it out loud for the folks in the room to address. Not seeing any raised hands. We'll just give another moment. If you're looking for the raise hand feature, just go down to the bottom of your screen if you're on a laptop. Okay, we do have a question in the chat. It says, "Hi there. Any word on a traffic light?"
So I assume you're referring to the intersection at Potter Drive. We are installing the infrastructure so that one can be installed in the future. The traffic light is not planned for at this phase of the project, but the infrastructure will be there. So once the need for a traffic light is there, it will be fairly straightforward process to install.
And I'll just sorry about that, everyone. That seems to be working a bit better. So I'll start over. My name is Luke McDonald, Engineering Environment Manager at the Township. So there will be a pedestrian traffic signal for the pedestrian crossing at West Street, the pop-in. So that'll be an improved pedestrian crossing at that intersection. And that'll be a traffic light there for strictly the purposes of pedestrian crossing. Thanks.
Thank you, Joe and Luke. Anyone else in the virtual audience have a question? Please raise your hand or feel free to type it into the chat. We'll just give a moment for that. Not seeing any, but in case someone is typing, we'll just give another moment. Okay, well, Thank you to everyone who attended this evening. If you are watching this video recording at a later date, please email any questions that you may have to Joe, whose contact information is on the project webpage. Yeah, thanks to everyone for joining. And we'll see you in a few months when construction gets underway. Have a good evening.